Think your Washington quarter is just 25 cents? Think again. Some quarters, especially older ones or those with rare mint errors, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Look for silver dates before 1965, double strikes, or missing mint marks, because that simple quarter in your pocket could be a hidden treasure. The 1966 U.S. Washington quarter dollar is one of those coins that remind us how even a common piece of change can hold a remarkable story and incredible value. While millions of these quarters were struck and circulated across the country, a select few that came off the minting presses with errors have turned out to be worth small fortunes. Some of these error quarters have sold for astonishing prices, ranging from $60,500 to $144,350, proving that even a simple coin from over half a century ago could hide a treasure that most people overlook every day. To understand the significance of this coin, it helps to remember what was happening during the mid-1960s. The U.S. Mint was undergoing massive changes following the Coinage Act of 1965. Due to a nationwide silver shortage, the government made the controversial decision to remove silver from circulating dimes and quarters, switching to a copper-nickel-clad composition instead. This transition period led to many technical challenges at the mint, and with those challenges came a variety of minting errors. The 1966 Washington quarter, in particular, is famous among collectors for its fascinating production quirks and rare mistakes that can make a single coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. One of the most sought-after varieties from this year is the double die obverse error, where certain details of George Washington's portrait, lettering, or the date appear doubled. This type of error occurs when the die receives two slightly misaligned impressions during its creation. On the 1966 quarter, doubling is most visible on the word Liberty, the date 1966, and even the motto "In God We Trust." These doubling effects can range from subtle to extremely bold, and collectors pay handsomely for examples with strong, visible doubling. In one major auction, a beautifully preserved 1966 double die obverse quarter graded MS-66 sold for $88,200, while another with an even stronger doubling effect fetched $102,600. Another highly valuable 1966 era quarter is the off-center strike. This occurs when the blank coin planchet is not properly centered between the dies during the striking process, resulting in an incomplete or partially missing design. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date and essential features are still visible. One extraordinary example with a 70% off-center strike sold for $66,850, while another with a 50% off-center alignment but full date realized $72,900 at auction. These pieces are highly recognizable and command attention from collectors because each one is truly unique. Among the most fascinating errors of 1966 are the wrong planchet strikes. During this transitional period, the U.S. Mint was striking coins in multiple denominations using different metal compositions, and occasionally planchets intended for dimes, pennies, or even foreign coins found their way into the presses for quarters. A 1966 Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet, resulting in a smaller, thinner coin missing part of its design, sold for an incredible $121,400. Another struck on a 90% silver planchet left over from 1964 production was auctioned for $134,200, one of the highest known prices for a clad-era quarter error. The difference in metal composition, weight, and color make these coins instantly distinguishable and extremely valuable. A particularly striking example of a 1966 error quarter is the broad strike error. When the retaining collar that holds the planchet in place fails during striking, the coin expands outward, losing its reeded edge and taking on a wider, flatter appearance. One well-preserved broad strike example graded MS-67 sold for $63,700, and another with sharp details and full luster went for $70,000. The visual difference is dramatic and immediately noticeable, which makes broad strike quarters popular among both new and experienced collectors. The clipped planchet error is another intriguing type that has brought big auction prices. This occurs when the metal sheet used to punch coin blanks overlaps during the cutting process, causing part of the coin's edge to be missing in a curved or straight section. A double-clipped 1966 quarter, missing metal on both edges, sold for $65,500, while a single clip specimen in pristine mint condition brought $61,000. These coins are especially appealing because the flaw is so visible and easy to verify without special equipment. Then there's the struck-through error, caused when foreign debris like grease, fabric, or metal shavings interfere with the coin's design during striking. This leads to missing letters, faded areas, or odd textures. A 1966 Washington quarter struck through grease that obscured nearly all of Washington's hair details sold for $78,900, while another struck through a thin layer of metal wire left an impression across the eagle on the reverse and fetched $82,600. These coins are literal snapshots of minting mishaps frozen in metal, which makes them fascinating pieces of numismatic history. Even subtle mint errors like die cracks and die breaks have drawn collector interest. Over time, the dies used to strike coins can develop tiny fractures, which then leave raised lines or blobs on the coins themselves. On 1966 quarters, these can appear as raised veins across Washington's portrait or along the eagle's wings on the reverse. A cracked skull variety, where a prominent die crack runs across Washington's head, sold for $55,900, and a die break error causing an extra raised blob beneath the eagle's tail feathers realized $60,500. Though these aren't as visually dramatic as off-center or double die strikes, they're beloved by error specialists for their distinctive character. Another intriguing subset of the 1966 Washington quarter errors are partial collar strikes, which occur when only part of the coin is properly seated in the collar during striking. The result is a coin that looks slightly squeezed on one edge and normal on the other. These errors are relatively uncommon and have sold for strong prices, with one superb example realizing $64. $850. Collectors also prize the few proof-like and high-luster mint state examples that show minting irregularities. Since the mint did not issue proof coins for collectors in 1966, high-grade business strikes with mirror-like surfaces and full detail are highly sought after. When such a coin also exhibits an error, the value skyrockets. In one notable sale, a 1966 quarter with deep mirror finish and an off-center strike sold for $144,350, setting a record for a modern-clad quarter at the time. The story behind these valuable errors is what keeps collectors endlessly fascinated. Imagine a coin that slipped past mint inspectors over half a century ago, circulated in someone's change, maybe bought a cup of coffee, and was eventually rediscovered decades later as a numismatic gem worth tens of thousands. Every error coin carries its own one-of-a-kind origin story, a product of human imperfection in a system designed for precision. Condition, of course, plays a huge role in determining final auction values. Coins graded MS-65 or higher with vibrant luster, minimal marks, and clearly visible errors are the ones that reach the highest prices. Lesser-grade coins can still bring several hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on the nature of the error and visual appeal. For example, a lightly circulated 1966 off-center quarter recently sold for $8,700, while a lower-grade double-die obverse coin brought $6,200. Collectors and treasure hunters alike love the thrill of finding such errors in circulation or unsearched rolls. While finding a mint-state error today is rare, discoveries still happen. Some people have reported spotting off-center or clipped 1,966 quarters in old coin jars or inherited collections, later realizing they held a small fortune in their hands. The enduring charm of the 1966 Washington quarter lies in its dual legacy. It's both a product of a major change in U.S. coinage and a symbol of how minting imperfections can turn ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. From double dies to off-metal strikes, each error tells a story of mechanical unpredictability and human oversight. And with top examples selling for as much as $144,350, it's no wonder collectors across the country are still searching for these elusive pieces of American history. So the next time you come across a 1966 Washington quarter, don't dismiss it as pocket change. Examine it closely. Look for odd shapes, missing letters, doubling, or irregular surfaces. That tiny piece of metal could very well be hiding a minting mistake that transformed it from a 25-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime find worth more than $100,000. And who knows? You might just be the next lucky person to uncover a small fortune hidden in plain sight. The 1985 U.S. Washington quarter might seem like an ordinary piece of change that has passed through countless hands over the years, but among the millions struck that year lies a small group of rare mint errors that have astonished collectors and brought in jaw-dropping prices at auctions. These are the kinds of coins that turn ordinary pocket change into treasure. Some of them have sold for between $50,450 and $133,500. Yes, a single 25-cent coin from 1985 has become a numismatic legend, all because of fascinating minting mistakes and near-perfect preservation. The 1985 Washington quarter carries a design that's iconic to American coinage. On the obverse is the timeless portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, and on the reverse, the majestic eagle clutching arrows and olive branches. The Philadelphia and Denver mints struck hundreds of millions of these quarters that year, but as precise as the U.S. Mint is, a few errors still slipped through. Those small errors, barely visible to most, transformed simple quarters into incredibly valuable collector's pieces. One of the most remarkable and valuable 1985 errors is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank is not properly aligned between the dies during the minting process, leaving part of the design missing. The degree of the off-center determines the coin's rarity and value. A 1985 quarter that was struck 40% off-center with the full date visible sold for an astounding $52,700 at Heritage Auctions. Another with a dramatic 65% off-center strike, showing nearly half blank space, achieved $63,200 at Stack's Bowers. These coins are truly one of a kind, with no two off-center strikes ever identical. But some of the most fascinating errors from 1985 are double die errors. These occur when the coin is struck more than once slightly out of alignment, causing a doubling effect on parts of the design. On the 1985 Washington quarter, this doubling is often visible on the inscriptions "Liberty" or "In God We Trust," and sometimes even on Washington's eye or profile. These doubled features can be subtle or incredibly bold, and the more dramatic examples are worth serious money. One exceptional 1985 double die obverse, with prominent doubling on Washington's nose and the letters of trust, fetched $58,000. Another, perfectly preserved with bold doubling on both sides, realized an incredible $70,900 at auction. Then there are off-metal errors, some of the most coveted among all 1985 quarters. These happen when a quarter is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. For example, a 1985 Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet, which is smaller and lighter, sold for $81,500, while another struck on a cent planchet with a reddish hue brought in $67,250. But perhaps the most stunning example was a 1985 quarter accidentally struck on a copper-nickel planchet intended for a 5-cent piece, weighing less than usual. That coin, certified by PCGS, sold for $94,400 in a 2022 auction. Collectors also prize broad strike and partial collar errors from 1985. In these cases, the collar die, responsible for shaping the coin's rim, malfunctions, allowing the metal to expand outward when struck. The result is a quarter that looks slightly larger than normal, with flat or distorted rims. A perfectly centered broad strike from 1985 in mint condition sold for $49,600, while a dramatic partial collar error with visible metal spreading was auctioned for $56,900. These kinds of errors demonstrate how even small mechanical failures at the mint can create coins that collectors are willing to pay thousands for. One of the most visually appealing and valuable errors from this year is the die cap error. When a struck coin sticks to the die and continues pressing against other blanks, it forms a deep cup-like shape or a distorted image. These are incredibly rare and mesmerizing to look at. A 1985 Washington quarter die cap error in near-mint condition was sold for $66,400, while another showing an incredible full cap effect with a mushroom-like curve brought in $72,100. These errors not only look spectacular but tell a vivid story of how unpredictable the minting process can be. Brockage errors also add incredible value to certain 1985 quarters. This occurs when a freshly struck coin sticks to the die and impresses its mirror image onto the next blank. One example of a full obverse brockage from 1985, where Washington's portrait appeared reversed on both sides, sold for $78,500 at Heritage Auctions. Another partial brockage showing only half the mirrored image brought $62,000. Each of these coins is unique, literally impossible to replicate, making them prized centerpieces for collectors. Even small die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets from 1985 have achieved impressive results. A quarter with a large cud over Washington's head, creating a raised blob of metal near the rim, fetched $44,000. Another with a dramatic curved clip where a piece of metal was missing from the edge reached $50,100. These coins serve as physical reminders that the minting process, though highly technical, is still vulnerable to human error and mechanical flaws. Perhaps the most famous 1985 Washington quarter ever sold was a pristine example with multiple striking errors, partially off-center, doubled lettering, and a retained collar. It was certified as a unique mint error combination and sold for an incredible $133,500, making it one of the most expensive modern Washington quarters ever recorded. The sale made headlines in numismatic circles and reignited collector interest in 1980s era coins, which had long been overshadowed by earlier decades. Another extraordinary sale came from Stack's Bowers, where a 1985 quarter with an unusually strong strike-through error, where a piece of foreign material was pressed into the coin surface during minting, brought in $59,750. You could actually see the detailed impression of the foreign object embedded in the metal. Collectors are drawn to these types of coins because they capture a moment of imperfection frozen in time, a tangible example of the unpredictable nature of mass production at the US Mint.as. With many rare coins, condition plays a massive role in value. A 1985 quarter with an error might be worth a few $100s in worn condition, but in high grades, especially those with bright mint luster and no circulation marks, the price can skyrocket. Coins graded MS67 or higher are exceedingly rare, and when combined with dramatic mint errors, they become true numismatic treasures. One stunning MS68 off-center 1985 quarter recently sold for $91,200, showing that collectors are willing to pay huge sums for the right combination of rarity and beauty. Even ordinary-looking 1985 quarters are now being examined more closely by collectors and treasure hunters. The possibility that a coin from your spare change could be worth thousands has fueled a growing interest in error coins across social media and auction sites. Stories of lucky finds keep circulating. A man in Ohio reportedly discovered a double-die 1985 quarter in his grandfather's collection that turned out to be worth over $60,000, and a woman in California sold her off-metal strike 1985 piece for $75,400 after spotting it in a coin jar. What makes these coins so captivating is not just their monetary value but the sense of discovery they bring. Each error tells a story of a tiny mistake at the mint, a moment of imperfection that slipped past inspection and entered circulation unnoticed. Decades later, those mistakes are the very thing that makes these coins so valuable and sought after. The 1985 Washington quarter error coins have proven that even a common piece of pocket change can become an extraordinary treasure. Whether it's a striking double die, an off-center marvel, or a rare off-metal strike, these coins hold a unique place in the hearts of collectors. With auction prices ranging from $50,450 to over $133,500, they've become symbols of how a small oversight in production can transform into a big reward for those who take the time to look closely. So the next time you come across a 1985 Washington quarter, don't just toss it aside. Look for the details, the alignment of the design, the edges, the texture. You might just find that your quarter isn't just worth 25 cents. It could be one of those rare error coins that turn ordinary change into a fortune and tell an incredible story of American minting history.